Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane plans to legally challenge the University of Fort Hare's decision, which was to deregister him as a student. This took place in 2021 after it emerged that admissions proper procedures were allegedly not followed. President Cyril Ramaphosa then authorized the Special Investigating Unit, that's the SIU, to probe alleged corruption and maladministration at the university, including the enrollment of honors students and the awarding of degrees. The ANC in the province says there's confusion peddled by the University of Fort Hare, together with the SIU, regarding Mabuyane's qualifications. ANC Eastern Cape Yanga Zicina joins us now to perhaps unpack those confusions and perhaps denounce them a little bit further. Mabuyane, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. And thank you so much for joining us on the show. Perhaps we can get your thoughts on how things have fared thus far. You've released that statement in which you feel emboldened and exonerated in many ways. But you've also heard from the SIU who are saying this does not actually infringe in any way on their broader scope investigation, which is to still investigate the University of Fort Hare and their admission cycle. What do you think of it? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you and to the viewers. The ANC will never at any point stand against investigation. Where there's been allegations of wrongdoing, we believe those must be investigated fully. And the chairperson of the ANC and all members of the ANC will always avail themselves for investigation whenever there's a need to do so. But we think that in this particular instance, there is an abuse of authority. For instance, a proclamation would have been issued to investigate degrees, and there's no sober person who would stand against that. But the premier and chairperson of the ANC was made a subject of a proclamation that did not cover him. I want to state it from the outset that the premier does not have a master's degree.
Yeah.
What the premier could have done, or the chairperson of the ANC could have done, like any other prospective students in any university in the country, would have been to apply using an existing policy of admissions of any university, which is the recognition of prior learning. The chairperson is a graduate of the University of Fort Hare with an economics degree. So some 15 years odd after he has left the university, having collected experience in the field, would have subjected to himself to an admissions policy which acknowledges prior learning outside of the formal environment, where a panel will sit like any other student and consider the submitted information, and based on that, make a determination. And it's a process, the admission, which includes many individuals who are experienced insofar as the academic field is concerned.
Young, I don't want you to go too much further. I'm so sorry to interrupt. I don't want you to go too much further because there's actually so much you've unpacked for us already there. And I wanted to ask you two things very quickly. One, you spoke about you feel like there's an abuse of authority that is happening here. An abuse of authority by whom? The person who's instituted this inquest, which is the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, the SIU and their investigation, because they've now broadened the scope entirely to not just include Oscar Mabuyane, but really to the entire admissions process, or who?
The initial proclamation did not cover the senior degrees, your master's degree and your doctoral degree and so on. But the SIU would have used the initial proclamation to make basically and harass the chairperson and make him a center of an investigation which is not covered in terms of the initial proclamation. In terms of the amended proclamation, the chairperson is willing to cooperate, and the ANC is encouraging everybody to cooperate. But still, even within the second proclamation, if he feels like any other individual that there is an abuse of authority, they are still entitled to use the law of the country
Yeah.
to vindicate themselves. The University of Fort Hare would have deregistered the chairperson outside any consultation. A forensic report, we are told, was conducted, was used to deregister an individual who never participated in the investigation. And if you ask me, the laws of natural justice do not allow that. Everybody must be given an opportunity to make representations of their situation. Then a determination is made on the basis of considering all sides to the coin.
Yeah.
So this we consider abuse because the chairperson was never given an opportunity to cooperate or to participate or to tell his side of the story.
Sure.
A forensic investigation can't be relied upon if it is not inclusive of all the statements from all the parties. So we're saying the SIU here was in error insofar as using a proclamation that did not consider, and every individual in this country has a right to express themselves in terms of the law. This is why the court found in favor of the applicant, and the
Sure.
court is not ambiguous. It says the SIU was unconstitutional, it abused its authority, it ultra vires, and all of those
Sure.
things
But
that
you
are
agree
stated in
that,
the judgment.
but you agree that the amended probe now makes a little bit more sense. Are you accepting of that amended proclamation?
We are accepting the
Okay.
amended proclamation, and the chairperson will cooperate fully.
Sure.
Because there is no intention to evade being
Okay.
investigated. But all we are saying here is that people must not use institutions of
Sure.
government, which are meant to actually facilitate democracy.
Okay. What about the assessment of prior learning that you spoke about then? Did that constitute a sense of understanding that the Premier did actually have an honours degree which would qualify him to then have or enter the course to have a master's qualification? Obviously, to enter the course, not necessarily to have it. But would that assessment of prior learning have given him the honours degree as you believe it?
Look, there are two ways in which you access registration or admission into master's degree. It's either you have an honours degree or alternatively, it's either, and this is university policy, almost in all universities of this country. You collect whatever qualification you have, when in this case is an economics degree, together with the recognition of prior learning, having experience in the field, and a panel of experts, academic experts, will sit down and consider if whether the amount of experience you have is sufficient to grant you access into a master's degree. And in this case, we're talking about granting access into a master's degree. And the institutional platforms, and it's a quite a lengthy process, and it's considered by a team of people who are academically qualified to consider that. In the University of Fort Hare, agreed that the submitted information meets the minimum requirements insofar as the policy of the university is concerned. So this is a decision made by the University of Fort Hare. I've never experienced a student who goes to apply to a university and actually be responsible for admitting themselves. So if there is an error, according to the University of Fort Hare, if there's an error or anything did not go right, it should be the university that takes responsibility, because nobody admits themselves into an academic platform.
All right, understandable. So where to from here then? Because the question mark would be, what does this actually say about academic integrity? Maybe even ethical standards for public officials. We've had conversations around this, around many previous leaders who have falsified qualifications, and it's become an issue in itself. How do we curb it? What is your suggestion to anybody, if it happens to be the Premier, whether it is or not? Of course, no confirmation of that. But if it was to be the Premier that is found to have not attained the entry into his master's correctly, what should then be done?
I want to start by emphasizing the fact that recognition of prior learning is an acceptable admission, part of the admission policy in a variety of institutions. So it would be incorrect to suggest that the chairperson of the ANC, who is also premier, and any other individual, if they've obtained access to a master's degree, they have done so using wrong methods. Because this is in the if the University of Fort Hare is not happy about RPL, it is within its right to scrap it. But from where we're sitting, there's so many individuals who have actually been admitted and actually graduated, having been considered through this way. So if the university is not happy, is no longer happy with its policy on RPL, it's available. One of the available recourses is for them to scrap the entire policy so that they make it impossible for anybody to access a master's degree outside an honors degree. Yeah. Honestly, I do not understand this halapalu because it's not only the University of Fort Hare, by the way. You go to many other universities in the country, the recognition of prior learning as a prerequisite for access to senior degrees is an existing.
But my question, though, Yanga, was literally, what do you think should happen if there's found to be a mislead in any kind of way, or the attainment into entering this master's degree was found to be irregular? What should happen then? What should consequence management be here? Not just for the Premier, if he's ever found to be that again, anybody else?
Anybody who is found guilty of wrongdoing should bear the consequences. There should be consequences for wrongdoing. If the Premier himself fabricated something in order to gain access to this degree, which we have not been exposed to, if he has done that, he must face the music. There must be consequences applied by the institution in which he is applied for, not only him, any other individual.
Yes.
But our contention here is that there is no wrongdoing. But should anybody be found guilty of any wrongdoing, there should be consequences. This is the position of the ANC.
Yanga Zicina, the Eastern Cape's ANC spokesperson. Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Here we'll